Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. So today I have a channel update video for you guys. I'm approaching 1,099,000 subscribers. I know you guys can see only 1,090,000, but that's because it only updates every 10,000 for everyone else. But on my end, I see it's 1,098,000 and it's approaching 1,099,000. So I want to thank everybody for the support. Thank you guys for the support. It means a lot to me. Thank you guys for watching my channel, hanging out with me. It helps me to grow and does boost my confidence by a lot. So I do want to thank everybody for that support. Now, a few weeks ago is I posted a video talking about retail and just ranting about this terrible managers and these greedy companies, and that video had almost gotten to 150,000 views. I was very surprised that video had gotten so popular, but when I'm reading the comments, a lot of you guys wanted me to make another video like talking about some real life stuff, and there isn't really any more retail stories that I can share, and so what I decided is I'm decided on making a video talking about something else that probably a lot of other people have dealt with, or you're probably going to deal with, and what you can do if you encounter these situations. I hope the advice that I give in this video helps people out, and you stop this from basically happening to you, which is, dealing with really bad group members, like, in high school and college, like when you have to do group projects and they just basically turn into an absolute disaster. So before we start out here, I want to thank my moderators. Thank you, Saucer Cats, TJ Lever, Fernando Martinez, Vago6423, Overboard, Carlos, Sean Easy World, and Chasaroonie. Thank you guys for helping me moderate my stream chat. I do greatly appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And thank you guys, everybody who supported me through Patreon, channel memberships, Super Chat, and Super Thanks, which I'll have up on the screen right now. Your support helps me tremendously, especially when I deal with copyright, like when my lore videos get copyright claimed, or some of my videos sometimes get demonetized. Your support helps me out tremendously on the channel. I want to thank everybody for that. I will have them up on the screen right here. So, starting off here, we're talking about group projects. So group projects, these are projects in which you have to complete an assignment in a given time, and you're going to be put into a group. Sometimes you can choose your group members, but most of the time you can't. Most of the time it's the teacher who actually ends up choosing the group members for you. Now, here's the thing. When I worked in high school, I actually did not have that many group projects that turned into a disaster. Almost all my group project disasters were in high school, pretty much all of them. And so, for this video, we're going to be talking about 3 horror stories, 3 really, terrible, group project disasters that I had, and I'm going to basically explaining to you guys, giving you guys advice on what you can do to prevent this from happening to you. Now, if you've worked in several group projects like me, you probably have had it happen at least once to you, where you have that one group member that's not contributing, does not want to help, and is trying to basically take credit for your work. It's very frustrating when a situation like that happens, but let me tell you guys the very first story that I had right here. So the first story, this happened all the way back in 2013. It was actually right after I had started college. It was like a year into college, and this is like over 11 years ago, and this is for a lab class. Now, I actually do not remember what the lab class name was. The only thing I remember is it was a lab class. We had like these big, long, black tables that we would sit at, and in this lab class, how it basically worked is we were assigned in groups of 2. Every week we would have like a new assignment, a new lab to do, and how it would work is that each partner would work on a different part of the lab and would create their hypothesis, their theory. They would jot down notes, and then what would happen is we would then share our notes and share our findings with our group members. So I would do one part of the project, he would do one part of the project, and we basically share our findings together and our hypothesis. Now, we couldn't actually hand in the assignment as each our own part. We actually had to copy our partner's notes down and our partner's findings and add that into our own and both hand it in separately. That's basically how the teacher wanted it done. So this first guy that I was working with, the first few projects that I worked with him, it was fine. There was nothing really bad happening. Nothing really went wrong. It was all fine. It was all good. What ends up happening is the final project I worked with, it was the final one, it was a disaster. And the thing is, this wasn't even the final project for the class entirely. It was just the final project with him, which I'll explain why in a little bit. So basically, I had that class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And this assignment was given to me on a Tuesday, but it was going to be basically on, it was going to be due on Thursday, next week. And so Tuesday, he's not in class. He's not. I started my part of the project. Thursday, he's not in class either. And so I did, I finished my entire part of the lab, and I started doing a little bit of his too. So I did kind of 60% of the lab for that week. Now, he ends up coming in Tuesday. Tuesday, he ends up coming in, 2 days before the project is due. And he basically tells me, sorry, I've been sick. let me copy down. Let me take your notes from the project, your findings. Let me take that home. I will copy that, and then I will give it back to you. When we come into class on Thursday, and you can easily, transfer it over really quick, and we can give it to the teacher. And I said, okay, and the teacher actually saw it too. The teacher saw that. The teacher knew that that's what I was doing, that I was going to let him take my part of the assignment home. He was going to copy my findings, and then he was going to make his findings, and he was basically going to give it back to me. We were going to, then hand in both of our separate parts. And again, the teacher was a witness to this. The teacher saw this. He saw me basically give my part of the project to the to my group member. He was perfectly fine with this, and not only that, but I had multiple witnesses to this. Now, what happens is Thursday, the date that the assignment is supposed to be due, he doesn't come into class. He doesn't. And not only that, you know what else happened? He dropped the class. That's right. He dropped the class. He was his final day in the class, and he dropped it. He didn't do it. And basically, what I think happened is I don't think he was actually sick. I think that he just made that up. I think he just didn't feel like coming to class those 3 days, and then he decided, you know what? I'm not going to, do this project anymore. I'm not going to do this project. I don't feel like working in this class. I'm just going to drop it. And he still had my assignment. He's like, I don't care either. And he just didn't bring it back to the class. He didn't care that my grade was going to suffer because of this. But like I said, it was such a scummy thing. If you're going to drop the class, then at least come back to class and at least give me my part of the project back. But it's the fact that he took my part of the project, did not ever show up to class. And I told the teacher about this. He saw that the guy was not here. He was absent. You know what the teacher told me? The teacher told me that's not an excuse, and basically gave me a 0. He gave me a 0 for that whole thing. And I told him, you saw me give it to him. You were fine with that. You saw me do the work. I did my work for the part of the project, so at least grade me for my part of the project. He's like, nope, you did not hand it in. It is a 0. It is your responsibility, blah, blah, blah. This gives me a 0. And the thing about this is what really irritated me is he even took it a step further. So not only did he give me a 0, he took it a step further that he went in the middle of class and he embarrassed me. And he said, you know what your problem is, Patrick? Your problem is you trust people too much. And he gave me a 0. And so it wasn't just that, he embarrassed me in front of the whole class. And I remember that when class ended, there was a few of my classmates that told me, don't worry about it, the guy's an asshole. But the majority of the class did not like him. Nobody liked him, but I was wondering why nobody stood up for me. I was like, could not have one person said something in the class like, listen, he did his assignment. I saw him do it too. At least, let the kid at least do the assignment again. But no, it was not that. Nobody stood up for me. So I wish they would have actually said something in class instead of trying to comfort me afterwards. And I'll tell you guys this. What ended up happening was a few weeks later, we I was in that class again. And I got pissed at that professor, and for a different topic, I decided to stand up to him. I was actually put in a group of 3 because I was put in a group of 2. I was added to that, so now we were a group of 3 because my group member never returned. Our assignments were a little bit different, but that group I had for the rest of the class, I had no complaints about them. They were great. We worked together. There was no issues. But I will say, though, that I stood up to that teacher, and I got pissed at that teacher. I got pissed at him for another thing. What that teacher basically did was, that teacher would bring up a lot of stuff that was not relevant to the lab class at all. And I would say even political stuff too, constantly, which I did not think was necessarily appropriate in a lab class. That's, feel free to disagree with me, but that was just my thoughts. He was constantly bringing it up. And this teacher, he was from a foreign country. And the reason that I bring that up is because what he was doing constantly is he was constantly complaining about the American education system. He was attacking the American education system. He was saying that the American education system sucks. And he was saying, oh, this country does so much better and this country does so much better than America. America's education system is terrible. It should be more federalized, stuff like that, basically. Now, look, here's the thing about this is this teacher, the way he was talking about it, he wasn't talking about it in a respectful way. He wasn't talking about it I want my students to get better, you guys should have a better education system, in this country. It wasn't like that. The way that he was talking about it, he was trying to make it seem like Americans were just stupid, the way that he was talking, the way he described it, it was just not a nice way, the way that he was talking. It was more of an insulting way, not a concerned way. And most of the class did not like this guy. When I looked up his reviews on Rate My Professors, he had he had terrible reviews, which I really wish I'd known about that site before, before I had taken that class. But anyways, I decided to stand up to him because here's the thing is, I might not be that good at science, and I'm terrible at math. Like, I'm not that great at science, and like I said, I'm really bad at math. Math I just suck at. But one thing that I do know really good is I know history really good, and I know government and economics. That's like, one class that I was always like really good in, and I always took a particular interest in. Now, I stood up to him when he was ranting about the American education system, stuff like that. There was even one post on Rate My Professors, by the way. There was one guy who said that he called American students delinquents. Now, I've never actually heard him say that in class, but I believe it because of just the way that this guy would constantly talk to people. So he was complaining about like the American education system again in a lab class, which I don't know how that's relevant to a lab class, but he was like saying like, oh, the American education system is terrible, it needs to be more federalized, blah 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 this, and I told him, you don't understand how education works in America. You don't understand the education system in this country at all when you're talking about that. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, he's just getting all pissed about me talking back to him. I think most of the class was surprised because I was like the only person that ever spoke up against him, and I said something to him. So this was a topic that I do know a bit about, and I said to him that to me it's not important if other countries have higher test scores than my country. For me, the number one thing that's important is that we have the freedom in this country when it comes to education. And he was just like puzzled by it because he thought that I was going to say like, oh, higher test scores are always the most important thing. And this is one thing I will bring up. A lot of people, what they do is they attack America's education, and they always say like, oh, the test scores in this country or like in Europe and like Asia, they are much higher than like in America. America doesn't have the best education system in the world. I will admit to that. There's things that we could definitely vastly improve on. But here's one thing that people get very wrong about this. In a lot of those countries that have really high test scores, a lot of those countries, people there don't have a choice on what kind of education system that they can pursue. Now, you might think that that's a good thing, but me personally, it's my opinion, I just don't agree with that. I would rather have the freedom of choice when it comes to education and have my country have lower test scores, my country have really high test scores, and no freedom of choice when it comes to education, because I think freedom of choice when it comes to education, I think it creates more debate, and I think it creates more points of view instead of just having one single point of view. Because what I mean by this is that in America, we might not have the highest test scores, but we have the freedom to choose what kind of school we can go to. You can choose to send your kids to a private school. You can choose to send your kids to a private Catholic school. You can choose to send your kids to a public school. You can homeschool your kids. So there's a lot of different options when it comes to education in America. A lot of different choices, and not only that, but every single state in America also has its own different education system. There is really no federal uniform, education system all around. There are some things I know the federal government wants the states to know, but there really is not a single federal education system like all around all 50 states. So like the education system in one state is very different than another state. And everything that I just told you guys, I was explaining to him that exact thing. I said it doesn't matter about the test scores because in America, we have the freedom to choose. When I was in college, I was a very libertarian guy. I was all about individual liberty. That's basically what I was about. I was about freedom from the government, lower government, stuff like that. So I understood a lot of this stuff. I still like the Libertarian Party, and I don't really like bringing up the politics as much because this is a gaming channel, but that's just always my views. And I still agree with a lot of what the Libertarian Party says. I don't agree with everything, but I agree with a lot of their stuff. It's about individual liberty, just being more free, getting the government out of your life. And I was just trying to explain that to him. And I was explaining to him that like in America, like when America was founded, we were basically a bunch of ununified states that were pissed at Great Britain. Like all of the states were just, they weren't unified. That's what a lot of people don't know. When the American Revolution started, the states weren't unified. They weren't all together. And what happened is the states became more unified because it's just Britain was just oppressing them, putting higher taxes, not giving equal representation in Parliament. And I was saying the idea of America is that all of these states came together. And the idea is that every single state is almost like its own country in a way, but it's united by the federal government. So each state is going to have its own governor, its own laws, its own customs, its culture, different environments, different economies. So like every single state is like a different, because like one state you will have that'll be very urbanized, one state will be very rural. And so a rural state and an urban state are going to be run very differently. And also, one state might have an income tax. One state might have no income tax. One state might have, very strict gun laws. One state might have much easier gun laws. So the point that I was getting at, and I'm bringing all this up to him, I was saying to that professor, I was saying that every single, state has the right to choose its laws. And it's the same when it comes to, it's the exact same when it comes to education. And I said, do you really believe that the kids in Alaska should be learning the exact same thing thing that kids in Hawaii learn. That's what I said to him, and he's like it will be better. That's basically what he said. And I said, well, that's just your opinion. It's like there might be one state where it's a farming state, and maybe like schools will offer classes on like teaching kids how to farm, like the basics of farming, stuff like that, because it'll be very relevant to those kids. Maybe there's like a state like Florida, for example, and they teach or it's like a coastal state, and they teach there's like a class on like fishing, or like a class on navigating the water, stuff like that. So like every state has a different environment, different economy, different landscape, and because of that is that every single state, the people in those states should vote and decide on the education that their kids want. That's just, my view, my opinion, and I was bringing that up to him. So, it's like if you had, and I told the professor, that if you offer, farming classes here in New York, they would be completely useless because, we have no farmers here. It was this university, by the way, was in Long Island, Nassau County, Long Island, which I know people are going to tell me Long Island has some farms. I understand that, but it's largely not a farming. Long Island is largely not a farming place. It's mostly a suburban place. And so for people that go study in New York City, for example, in the suburbs, farming classes are not going to be of much help. But farming classes in a state maybe like Wyoming, or a Great Plains state, for example, a farming class might be very helpful. It might be the class the kids want to take, stuff like that. So that's what I was explaining to him, that it's not all about the higher test scores. It's about the fact that every single state has the right to decide on what kind of education system they want, and if that means lower test scores, then so be it. I prefer a much more diverse education system, just all around, where we have different viewpoints, we learn different things all around, and it's not just every single person just learning the exact same thing all across. So that's what I was trying to explain to him, and I noticed that the students in the class were kind of shocked, but they were also kind of surprised that basically I had explained all that stuff to him. And for people wondering, I didn't get any kind of trouble for that. He got a bit pissed, he stopped arguing with me, but that was basically it. But that was just basically my response to it, because I was just so annoyed. I was so that 0 that he gave me was in the back of my mind, and I never forgot about that. And when he's constantly complaining about America's education system, every single week, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna tell this guy what I think. I might not be as good at science like him, but I do know some of this stuff when it comes to this, economy, governments, and stuff like this. And I'll bring this up. So that's basically what it is. I brought that up to class, and that was pretty much it. And I never forgot about that 0. I ended up, finishing the class. I ended up passing the class. I never saw that professor again. That was the last time I saw him, was 11 years ago. But what I will say is there's only 2 times ever that I've ever gotten a 0 in school, ever. And the only other time I got a 0, I talked about it in my bully lore video, the video game Bully, when I talked about things that reminded me of my real life school. And there was this. When I moved to that town, when we moved to our town in Long Island that we moved to, because we originally lived in Queens, New York City, and we moved to a small town in Long Island. I went to a new school, and that new school that I went to, the professor, she was a home economics teacher, I shouldn't call her professor. She demanded an assignment that week, and it was supposed to be double spaced, typed up, and I had no printer. We had no printer available right now. It was at the other house. We couldn't go back there at the moment. And what happened was, I was explaining this to my teacher. I was like, my parents are both, working. My mom works night shifts. My mom worked as a cleaner in Manhattan at night. My father, he works as a factory worker also. So it's so my parents don't have time to drive us back to to our house to get the printer at the moment. We're here right now. If you give me some time, I can get the printer back. Otherwise, I can just type it up on loose leaf. And I write it up on loose leaf. And she's like, no, you have to have it typed up. And I had no way to type it up. I had no access to a library card there. I had no way. I wasn't trying to get out the assignment, but I was trying to do the I was trying to do the assignment. I ended up doing the assignment by loose leaf. I did loose leaf, and I did it nice. I did also double space on loose leaf. I did print. I tried to give it to her, and she's like, "I'm not taking them." Like, what do you mean? She's like, "Oh, you didn't complete the assignment," and just gave me a 0. That was just basically it. And not only that, she called my mom and complained about it too, that I didn't do the assignment. My mom knew about it. She wasn't pissed about it at me, but that was it. So those only 2 times, that time in 8th grade and that time with that lab class in college, are the only 2 times I got the 0, and I never forgot about those. I still think about those to this day. I know some people might think that's stupid that you still think about that, but it just personally just irritates me so much, because I was always a very organized guy. I always got everything on time, and for just me to get screwed over like that, just 2 times for just something not being my fault, being totally out of my control. One time I didn't have a printer, and the other time I tried to do do the right thing, help my partner out, and the teacher just screwed me over too. Like, just thinking about that, it just irritates me. It makes me so mad, just getting a 0 for just something that was not my fault at all. But moving on here, that situation I was describing with that lab class is like when my partner took my assignment and, didn't give it back to me. How can you avoid a situation like that? I would say to avoid a situation like that is to have an extra copy saved. Like, have an extra copy. I didn't have a photocopier, so that was written up, so it was a little bit harder. But it was like, have an extra copy of your assignment, have it typed up, and always have it like in a folder in class, just in case, like just an extra copy of the assignment. And also be very careful when you send assignments to group members, because make sure you have some kind of proof, some kind of timestamp on your computer that shows you were the one who originally created the work. Because what you could do is you could email your group member your portion of the assignment, and your group member could just erase your name at the top of it, edit it, and just say, this is my part of the assignment. He didn't complete his part of the assignment, and try to take credit for your assignment. That's what some people are such scum. They will do stuff like that. So that's what I would say, is always have an extra copy and always have like some kind of proof that you were the one who created the original work, because people will do stuff like that. But that guy, I'm gonna say that guy is a scumbag. That my partner in that lab class, the fact that he had taken my assignment and he took my assignment and did not even bother to give it back to me. If you're going to drop the class, at least come by the class and give me my damn assignment back. It's like, my God, it's just so ridiculous and just so annoying. I'm sorry if I'm pissed about this, guys, but it was such an annoying, ridiculous situation. Second story that we got here. This second story, this was a security class. This was a building security or something like that. This class I took in like, it was like 2014. It was around about 2014, because I remember that GTA 5 on PS4 ironically was coming out around that time, fall 2014. So this had to have been around fall 2014. So this is almost 10 years ago too. So this was like a security class that I had taken, and I was taking law enforcement technology. I ended up graduating in 2019, by the way, 5 years later, because I was just between work and just school and stuff. I wasn't taking that many classes in college. I was focusing mostly on work, which I'll get to a little bit later. But anyways, this was like a security class. We were learning security. Security systems for like a building, like, door security, like, cameras, alarms, basically stuff like that. Like, how can you fortify a building? How can you keep a building secured from like intruders and stuff like that? And what happened is I got assigned to this group with this guy and this girl. Now, the guy was there like the first few days, but just didn't show up. The rest of the class, he did not show up at all. Never. And me and the girl even asked the teacher, like, where is the guy? And the teacher, he had no idea. He did not know where the guy was. He didn't know what happened to him. And we basically told him we don't want him getting credit for this assignment. We're just going to do it, me and her. And the teacher was like, fine, I agree. And what happened is we were doing the assignment. And then, like, literally the day that the assignment is due, he comes into class. Out of nowhere, he just shows up. And I remember he took his folder out. He's like, this is my part of the project, guys. I want to add it in. And we looked at his project really quickly over. Technically, we were supposed to do 33% each, but his was not the required amount that he was supposed to do, so it's shorter than it was supposed to be. And not only that, but it conflicted with our own notes. Like, I remember that he was like, he had something ridiculous in his assignment where I think it was like that he thought that every single building should have a fence, which me and that girl, we argued in our paper that not every single building should have a fence, because there are certain certain buildings that are so close to each other that you can't build a fence necessarily. So, like, not every single building necessarily requires a fence, but he was like on the thing that every single building requires a fence. We were basically arguing that if you have, proper security systems, you have a fortified door, you have an alarm system, you don't necessarily need a fence. But he was on the impression that every single building needs a fence, and that was like one thing we differed on. So not only was his assignment shorter, but it was also the fact that he argued with the points that we made, that we had spent working on. So honestly, imagine how pissed we were that we had spent weeks working on this together, and then he comes out of nowhere the last day, after not even talking to us, and then brings in like, not even like, completed all the way his part of the project, and it's and he's trying to take credit, and he's arguing also with our points on that. And what I basically did was I talked to that girl in private, and I said to her, I'm like, do you think that we should add his part to our project? And I remember what she said to me. She said to me, well, he didn't really do much, did he? That's like what she said. And she was pissed when I asked her that. I don't know if she was pissed at me. She was obviously pissed at the guy. I hope she wasn't pissed at me for asking that, because I just wanted her opinion. That's it. I didn't want the guy's stuff added, but I wanted to know what she thought. And she's like, well, he didn't really do much, did he? That's like what she said. And I was like, okay, I agree with you that that we shouldn't add his part to the project. And we basically told him, we're not taking your part of the project. We're not taking. He's like, what do you mean? Like, well, you weren't here in class for the last few weeks. We were working on this together. You were not here with us. We don't feel that we already completed our assignment. It's already 100% done. We don't feel that it's fair to us. If you want, you should hand in your assignment by yourself, your own project by yourself to the teacher. But we don't think that it's fair that you add on your own part to our part. And at that point, he basically just stopped arguing, and he kind of was like in defeat. He basically just said, I had personal things that I had to take care of, but we basically said, yeah, we don't want your part of the project. Now, look, we all have personal things to deal with. I get that. But what he could have done is he could have just came into class, talked to both me and her, asked us for our phone number, say, listen, I can't be in class the next few weeks, but I'm going to be talking to you guys on the phone. I'm going to be doing my part of the project. That's what he could have done. We were like, fine. Okay, that's fine, dude. But the fact he made no communication, no attempt to reach out to us, and then he tried to give us like a project that wasn't even like, completely completed, like his part, and different from ours. So we didn't take it. Now, here's the thing. When I told this story before in the stream, I told this story in the stream like a year or two ago when I was streaming GTA, I remember I had people that were on the stream, and there was like comments after comments, snitch, coming up, saying, oh, you snitched on him, professional. No, we didn't. Here's what I'll say is, snitching is when you, what snitching basically is when you are part of something bad. When you are a criminal and you're part of something bad, or you're breaking the rules in school, you get caught, and you don't want to you want to get a lesser punishment, and so because of that, you decide to basically rat out everybody else in your group. You are a snitch, and you're not doing that because you think it's the right thing. You're doing that because you want to get a lesser punishment. That is basically what snitching is. It's when you're part of something bad, and you inform on everybody else because you want a lesser punishment. That is basically what snitching is. This is not anywhere close to snitching. This is basically doing the right thing. Because think about it. Why should I have any loyalty to that guy? For anybody who says that me and that girl snitched on him by telling the professor we don't want him getting credit, why should he get credit? We have no loyalty to this guy. Why should I have any loyalty to this guy? This guy had no loyalty to me and her. He didn't, show up to class and communicate with us. Didn't make any attempt to reach out to us. So why should we, suffer? Why should we get a lower grade because of him? So that's it. So if you ever have a situation like that, the advice that I'll give you is to tell a teacher early on. If you have like a bad group member and you think they're going to sabotage your project, you think that it's going to hurt your project by working with that group member, you tell the professor early on. You tell the professor, I want to work by myself, or can I work with a different group member, anything like that. Just try to work it out with the teacher. And what I would do if I was you is get it in writing. Make sure you send the teacher an email and just say to them, listen, this group member of mine is not doing the work. He's not working properly with us. He's not communicating. And you want to get that in writing just in case, so that when the teacher on the final day of class cannot say, oh, this, you're going to have to take the lower grade because your group member did not do the work. You communicate with the teacher. You try to give them an email, and they didn't respond to you. You can show that, and you can complain to the dean. You can show that to the dean. You look at this dean, like, the professor did not, communicate with me. I tried to tell them. I emailed them several times. I told them about my group member. They did not listen to me. I ended up getting a 0 because of this. That is basically what you should do, is stuff like that, because you shouldn't get a 0 because of a terrible a professor. And I will also add on that about the backup copies is make sure you always have a backup copy of your assignment, because I'll tell you something. I had this one teacher for technical writing in college, and the teacher that I had for technical writing, the professor, he was a nice guy. He was actually a very friendly guy, but the problem with him is he was extremely unorganized. He was the most unorganized professor that I've ever seen in my life. He came in with a big messy folder every single day. He was late several times, and not only that, but when he would come into class, when he took our assignment, he actually lost half the class's assignment, and he told half the class that they have to type it up, and half the class says, I don't have a backup copy. And so they were basically forced to do the assignment again. I always kept backup copies, and so because of that, I just printed it out, gave it to him. I was annoyed, sure, but at least I didn't get a bad grade because of that. So that's basically it. Even a teacher can lose your project sometime, so make sure you keep that in mind. Always keep a backup copy, because you basically never know what can happen. Now here, third story. The third story we're moving on to. The third story is the worst story. In this one, this is the most toxic one. So basically, near the end, when I was graduating, this was like 2019, and I'm trying to remember when this was. I think this was winter 2019. Like, this is like I think this was like January 2019 is when this happened, because I remember it was like right before I graduated, which was like May of 2019. So this was, I remember it was cold when I took this class, so it had to be like January 2019, and it was a winter class. So about this. This was a class that dealt with workplace psychology. Now, I don't remember the exact name of the class. I think it was like workplace psychology or psychology in the workplace, something like that. But basically what the class did was it covered like psychology, dealing with your coworkers, dealing with bad bosses, basically stuff like that. And to be honest, the class did not help me at all, especially even when I worked in retail and dealt with terrible bosses. But anyways, about the class is this class, because I took it as an online class. And when I took this class as an online class, this class was this class we had one project. So basically, the entire class was going to be graded on one project. That was the only assignment we had for the whole class. We had one big project. And this, because it's a winter class, it's an online class, they're going to pack basically like a 3-month class into 1 month. That's how, if you take like a class in summer or winter, that's basically what happens. Is if the class is like it's a 1 month class, but really 3 months of material. So better be prepared to be overwhelmed. So like every single day, besides the weekends, you're gonna basically working on something in that class. So every week we had to hand in our portion of the project every week. So like every week we had to hand in one portion of the project, and like all 4 of us would work together. We would create one portion of the project, and then the second week we would all create a portion of the project. I was in a group of 4, and I remember I had 3 other girls in the group with me. Now, the stupid like message board that we had online, I hated that message board. I didn't like it. So I just said, what's your phone number, guys? Let's all just reach out. Let's just text each other. And so but basically all put each other in a group, and we're just group texting. There was an easier way to communicate with us than still using that stupid message board that was on the college site. So we were communicating with each other, and the final week of the project, the final part of the project that we had to submit. How it worked is, like I said, each of us would basically submit a portion of the project together. And what would happen is we would end up getting graded as a group. So it was a group thing that we would be graded for. However, though, even though we were graded as a group, is that if one person did not hand in one portion of the assignment, the entire project would fail for that week. So everybody needed to hand in their portion of the assignment. We needed to divide up the work. Now, we were given the choice on how we wanted to divide up the work. It wasn't like the lab class I was talking about, so it was a little bit different formula where we could choose what each person did. But regardless, we had to hand in the project. We had to all hand in the project at the end there. It did not matter who submitted the project at the end, but all that mattered was that we just had to submit the project to the teacher. So the teacher had to get the project from at least one group member. So what ends up happening is we were all submitting the projects, and there was this one girl in the group, and the one girl in the group, she was really good. Like really, really good with this stuff. Like she knew what she was doing when it came to the group, and not only that, but she also proofread each. So what she did was she took our drafts. Not only did she add her part, so each of us added their own part. She added her part, but she also proofread our work, the drafts, and checked for any spelling mistakes. Put it together, made it nicer. And just send it to the teacher in the end. And because she was proofreading and like editing the drafts and stuff like that, I felt like she was doing a little bit more work than everybody else. She was putting in more effort than everybody else, and I didn't think that was fair to her, that she was doing a little bit more work. And so what we did was, on the final week of the project, I told her, listen, you don't need to do anything for this week. I will cover your part of the project. I will cover your part of the project, and if you could just proofread the final draft, that's just it. But I will do your part of the project, just so you don't need to do anything. Because I said it's not fair that the other 3 weeks you basically were doing extra for us. We really appreciate it, and I will take care of your part of the project. And she thanked me for that. She was very happy with that. So I took on 50% of the work instead of 25% that week, and it was the least I could do for this girl who was doing all the proofreading, all the drafts and stuff like that. So what happened is I finished my part of the assignment. And the other girl, she finished her part of the assignment, the third girl, and I had 75% of the project. So the only thing I was waiting for is the final person of the group to basically, to submit it, and so that I could proofread it really quickly, fix any spelling mistakes, and then what I could do is I could submit the entire assignment together. So what happened is, I remember it was 10 p.m. The assignment was due at 11:59 p.m. If the assignment is not submitted at 11:59 p.m., it gives everybody automatically zero. And this was the final portion of the project that we had to submit. And so the fourth girl was not answering. And we were texting her a bunch of times, and we finally got through to her at 10. We're like, are you going to submit your part? Which at 10 o'clock, it wasn't that big of a deal still, because at 10 o'clock, I still have like 2 hours to proofread. So 10 o'clock, it's still plenty of time to like proofread the final draft, 2 hours to like proofread, check for any spelling mistakes, stuff like that. It was still, plenty of time to do stuff. But this is what threw me off guard. She said, "Oh, I can't right now. I'll submit it tomorrow." That's what she said. And we're like, "You can't submit it tomorrow. The project is due tonight, the final part of the project." And I say to her, "Are you going to submit it?" And she says, "No, I can't. I'm at work right now." At that point, I'm like, this is ridiculous. So she was not doing her final part of the project. That fourth girl. This is not the same girl that was proofreading and doing the draft. She was good. This was a different group member. Just making this clear. So I was good. That girl who did the drafts, she was helpful. The third girl was also helpful, but the last girl, the fourth girl, this is the girl like that I just explained before, was not, even though she submitted the other 3 weeks, the final week, she didn't submit her part of the project. She didn't submit her part of the work. She didn't do it. And I got really pissed and I got really annoyed. And what happened was, that girl was like, the other 2 girls were panicking. They're like, "What are we gonna do?" And I said to them, listen, I will do it. I'll type it up really quick. I will take care of it. So what I did was I sent her that other girl in my group who was doing, just reading over the drafts. I sent her the first 3 parts. My part, well, my 2 parts, and the other girl's part, so that she could start proofreading it and checking for any spelling mistakes, anything that needs to be edited. And in the meantime, in those 2 hours, I was doing that other girl's assignment that she was supposed to do. And and I was rushing through it. And those 2 hours were some of the most stressful 2 hours that I've ever had in my life, because it was like a month's worth of work that was about to be, for nothing. And so I was just rushing through it. I was just getting it done. I was texting with that other girl back and forth, the one who was proofreading it, and we were editing it. And I finally submitted it. I got it to her. She proofread it and then sent everything to me. I submitted it it was like 10 or 15 minutes before it was due. That was just basically it. So it was so stressful. We got it done. We got her portion done in like 2 hours. And that was just such a stressful thing. I was just pissed about that whole thing. It was just that. So oh man. So instead of doing 50%, which I agreed to, I ended up doing 75%. 75%, and there was that other girl who did 25%. That other girl, she helped me with the proofreading of the draft. I was very grateful for that. She also helped out with that. But I don't regret helping out my teammate at all, because I agreed to help her because she was doing a lot of work with the proofreading and the drafts, and so I wanted to be nice to her. She was a great help. But that other girl, this was a different girl, not the proofreading draft girl. The fact that she didn't submit her part of the assignment, and it stressed both of us out, and we had to take care of this. But we got it done. Everything ended up getting taken care of. Now here's the thing. What did I do after that situation? Every single week when we would submit our part of the project, when we submit the part of the project, we would have to rate our group members. So we'd have to rate our group members between 1 to 10. And typically every single week I gave my group members 10. All of my group members, I gave them 10. There was really no reason for me not to otherwise. Even though sometimes some of my group members, like that other girl who was, at work, I could have probably given her a 7 at times. I still was nice and I gave her a 10 a lot of times. So I gave everybody a 10 in the group. That's how it was. However, though, on that final, that final questionnaire, I didn't actually answer it. I refused to answer it. And I didn't even give a 1 on that. And instead, I actually, I emailed the teacher separately, the professor, and I told her that I'm giving her a 0, because 0 wasn't a scale. It was only 1 to 10. And I explained to her that she didn't even do any work, that fourth girl on that fourth part. I did give her 10s for the first 3 weeks, so she got credit for those first 3 weeks. But the fourth week, I don't think she deserved any credit for the fourth week. So she did get credit for the first 3 weeks of the project, the work that she put in, but I didn't think she deserved any credit for the fourth week, because she didn't do anything for the fourth week whatsoever. So I said, giving somebody even a 1 is implying that they did a little, even at least something. But it's the fact I don't want to give them anything because they didn't do any work whatsoever. And what ends up happening is the teacher didn't reply to me. I don't know what the teacher the teacher did about it. The only thing that I know is that teacher took some kind of action. That's the only thing I know. I don't know exactly what she did. I don't know if she got thrown out of the class or if she got a 0 for that part of the assignment. I don't know what ended up happening. But I do know that she did take some action. How do I know that? That girl who was not, who didn't submit her part of the assignment like she agreed to, what ended up happening is she went in the group chat, the text group chat, and she started just ranting. She didn't list me by name, so I don't think the teacher mentioned me by name. But basically, she started ranting in the chat, like the spamming text messages, just saying like, "How can you guys do this to me? Like, how can you give me a bad grade and everything like this? It's like I have responsibilities, I have things to do. I was not able to do the assignment and stuff like that." It was just such a bunch of insulting, arrogant text, and I messaged her and in the group chat, and I said, "Listen, we all have responsibilities. I work a job. You know, I work a job, I go to college too. We all have responsibilities. And not only that, I work a job, I go to college, and I work on YouTube. So in 2019, I was doing plenty of GTA guides. I was doing like a GTA guide like every single week, and I was doing multiple live streams and multiple projects that I was working on. So I was doing my job in retail is working. I was going to college, and I was doing, you know, those video projects on YouTube, and I was doing the assignment. I was doing basically multiple things. We all have responsibilities, but I really hate that when somebody says like I have responsibilities. I was not able to do that. That's like, how do you assume? Well, I hate when people say that. When people say I have responsibilities, I couldn't do that. The reason I hate when people say that is because what people are basically implying when they say that is they're saying, oh, you don't have anything important in your life. You should do the work. I shouldn't have to deal with this. That's basically what it is when people are saying I have responsibilities. So like assuming that everybody else has no responsibilities, but you have all the responsibilities and you have other things to do. And I said to her, if you don't have time, if you have other responsibilities, don't take an extra class if you don't have time to complete it. It's as simple as that. But she was having none of it. She was just arguing, and that was just pretty much it. And eventually the spam just stopped. I never even blocked her. It was just the spam just stopped. The messages she just kept sending were stopping. My other group members were backing me up. The other two group members, they were agreeing with me. I don't think they knew that I complained to that professor personally. I don't know if they complained to the professor. I don't know what grades they gave her. I'm assuming they gave her a bad grade too. But the professor probably said something to her that set her off, because she was probably expecting that we were just basically going to give her high grades, that she was going to get credit for the final part of the assignment. She didn't have to do anything, but that was just not fair there. That was not fair. That was a very scummy thing that she did, and it's kind of ironic that it's a class where you're learning about workplace psychology. You're learning about how you should deal with coworkers, how you should work together as a group, and yet you're not even working together as a group. How ironic is that? So that's basically it. You know, how to avoid a situation like that is just tell the professor. That's basically what I would say about it. Just tell the professor. That situation was unavoidable until the end, because the first 3 weeks she was doing her work, but the fourth week she just did not want to do her work at all. So she does deserve credit for those first 3 weeks, but the last part of the project that we did, she deserves no credit for that whatsoever. So that's basically my thoughts on it. So that's ultimately that. Is like, you're gonna have like really bad, you know, group projects in college. You're gonna have situations like this, you know, where you're dealing with scummy, like you know, scummy group members. They expect you to do the work. They expect you to basically do what they want. They expect to do nothing and expect you to do everything and expect to take credit for it. And so I'm saying is, you don't have any loyalty to these guys. Don't feel like you're snitching, because why should you have a bad grade for these people? You really shouldn't. Your grades should not suffer because of somebody's incompetence and somebody's being stupid and lazy. That's ultimately what I will say about that. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you drop a like. Let me know what you think down below. And if you guys have any horror group project stories, let me know in the comments, because I love reading your stories. And I'll reply to a lot of you guys in the comments too, if you guys have anything to say about this. And if you have any other advice, if you have any advice on how to deal with like a bad group member, let me know, because I'm sure there's extra advice people have that I never mentioned. I'm really curious what people will say. But thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.